Welcome to Humble Beginnings, the Undrafted Podcast. I'm your host, Rochelle Hamilton Jr., and we got a lot coming up on the podcast today. Week 1 in the NFL technically kicked off Thursday night, but really kicked off Sunday night. Colin Kaepernick and Nike. This was a huge development over the last week and a powerful message by Nike. Doug Pederson's going off on local Philly reporters about the quarterback situation in Philly. Le'Veon Bell and his offensive line. I can't believe what's going on over there in Philadelphia. I can't believe what's going on over there in Pittsburgh with the Le'Veon Bell situation. What a mess with that whole L. Bell situation. But first, I want to get to this Colin Kaepernick situation with Nike. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you know Nike made Colin Kaepernick the face of its 30th anniversary of the Just Do It campaign. The caption on the photo with Kaepernick's face basically said, "Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything." And this situation set off a grass fire basically since the day that it came out. And it was like it was really no in between. You were either for this campaign and for the whole movement that Kaepernick spearheaded, or you were completely against it and you're in the crowd that believes this whole thing is about not being a patriot and hating America and everything else. You couldn't be more wrong, but you're either on that side supporting Kaepernick or, on the side of, basically ignoring it. Anyway, first of all, let me just say that everyone is entitled to how they feel in this situation. That's part of what makes this country so great. But this move by Nike, this is a powerful message. This is a powerful move by Nike, who's one of the most globally recognized brands in the world. Now, of course, when this move was announced, there was a lot of folks who were upset. And, President Trump's been, he's been hammering away on this whole they're protesting the anthem, they're protesting the flag, and da-da-da-da-da. So, when that happened, a lot of the folks who identify with that mindset or that crowd said they were boycotting Nike. And, even though this message that Kaepernick is trying to send and people who support him and think like him, even though the message that they're trying to send has absolutely nothing to do with the anthem or the flag, these people are upset about it. And of these people, they just knew, and you couldn't tell them any different. They just knew that them boycotting Nike was really going to harm the company. First of all, this is why they couldn't be more wrong. First of all, Nike is a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company. They made $9.8 billion just last year in 2017 alone. As a whole, Nike's total worth is $34.5 billion with a B. Nike's worth $34.5 billion as a whole. Now, all of Nike's sales, whether you're talking about shoes, apparel, whatever, out of all their sales, the United States of America accounts for 50% of Nike sales. This means that the other 50% of Nike sales comes from international markets. And this is one thing that really kind of gets me with us Americans is, as Americans, we really kind of tend to think that we're basically the only country on earth. And we kind of forget that there are other countries and there are people from other countries on this earth. And as a result, let's just be honest. These people don't live here. So they don't care about our president. They don't care about our flag. They don't care about the things that Americans care about because, well, they don't live here. It's just like we generally don't get caught up in what goes on in other countries. Well, let me rephrase that because the American government likes to get involved with other countries' affairs. But most American citizens don't get involved with what's going on in other countries because we don't live there. And therefore, we tend not to get caught up in it. That's just a natural human. It's like a natural human reaction. So, I know, and I'm guilty of it as well. A lot of times as Americans, we tend to think that we're the only country on earth. And we really, a lot of these people just really thought by them not, supporting Nike and everything else, this was just going to really hurt Nike. And then there was the people who thought they were really making a difference by getting on social media and burning their Nikes and cutting up their clothes and everything else. And that, to me, is one of the stupidest things that a person can do. Like, I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. Burning clothes is so idiotic to me because this is the thing. The company has already got your money. You think Nike really cares what you do with your shoes, with your clothes, with your shirt, pants, whatever, once you purchase them? Like, once you make that purchase at the point of sale, Nike, they got their money. You can do whatever you want to do with the clothes. But to me, it is so stupid to burn something that you went out and you bought with your hard-earned money. Because if you really just didn't want to support Nike, which that's fine. If that's your way of thinking, fine. But if you were really that upset, why wouldn't you just go donate that to a homeless shelter? Why wouldn't you just go donate that to somebody who's less fortunate? There are tons and there are millions of homeless people who would have loved to wear some old used Nike gear. They would love it. They wouldn't have cared, about the campaign that Nike is supporting with Colin Kaepernick. They wouldn't have got caught up in all that. They would have just been happy to have a new pair of shoes, well, new to them, a new pair of shoes or a new shirt, new pants, whatever. They would have been happy for that. And then on top of that, if you're so caught up with the veterans and everything else, there are millions of homeless veterans in the United States of America alone. Like, I come from a military family. I had 5 cousins that served in the military. Thank God we got each and every last one of them back from all the craziness in Iraq and everything else. We got all of them back in one piece. So, the thing about it is, Nike knew that with this move, this would alienate some of their customers here in the United States, but they also knew that in doing so, they would have a great shot to get another 1 or 2 customers who supports Cap and this cause. Because with this move, Nike is banking on the fact of, okay, we're really kind of going after customers who are going to be Nike customers or Nike supporters for the next 30 or 40 years. They're not going after somebody who's been a Nike customer the past 30 or 40 years. Nike's thinking into the future. So for every one person who doesn't support Nike after this whole move, Nike's banking on the fact that there's another 1 or 2 or even more people who will support this move. And on top of the fact, this protest was never about the military. It was never about the flag. It was never about the anthem. It was never even about the NFL. And that's been the biggest misconception with the people who are against the players kneeling and everything else. They weren't kneeling and protesting the flag and the anthem, which I'm not even going to get into all that because that's been well documented. At this point, it just really kind of seems like if you're still thinking along that line, that's because you haven't taken the time out to find out really, truly what's going on. Colin Kaepernick started kneeling to protest the killing of unarmed black people and minorities by bad cops. Notice I said bad cops, not all cops, because not all cops are bad. I know some great cops who are some of the best people that you would ever run into. So what Kaepernick is saying when he started this protest is you won't listen to these people when they march in the streets. You won't listen to them at the city council meetings. You won't listen to them when they have the chance to put it in the local news. So what I'll do, I'll use my platform, one of the most prestigious platforms in the world, and I'll get your attention for them. So my family is a military family. I have 5 cousins who served in different branches of the military. I have 3 cousins who served in the Army, 2 who served in the Marines. They fought in Iraq during all the craziness in the early 2000s and the whole 9. They did all of that. And, they've got some of the craziest stories I've ever heard. And, some stuff they won't talk about, of course, but some of the stories that my cousins have told me, those are things that the average person will never understand what these people go through in the military. And the fact of the matter is people forget that the whole reason why Colin Kaepernick started kneeling in the first place is because he consulted with Nate Boyer, who's a former Marine, who told him that the most respectful way, if he's going to do this, would be to take a knee. Because at first he was sitting on the bench and nobody was really paying attention. And then he got with Nate Boyer, and Nate Boyer was the one that told him taking a knee during the protest would be a more respectful gesture if this is what Colin Kaepernick was going to do. So, so with all that being said, and let's not even get started with how this country treats veterans, because, we've got a person in the White House who he likes to claim that this is the military, and he likes to claim about, veterans and this and that and the other. But First of all, he dodged the draft 5 times on some lame excuse about bone spurs in his foot. But, that's neither here nor there. And, if this country truly cared about veterans as much as the fake outrage would like you to believe, there would not be as many homeless veterans as there are. There would not be as many veterans who don't have access to decent health care as there are. There would not be a suicide rate of 22 veterans a day like there is. So, I hate when people try to, pull the military in this and everything else. And really, and of course, there's people in the military who are on both sides of this issue, just like citizens are. So, it's just one of those issues where there's really no gray area with this. You're either for it or against it. And I know some people really don't like to look at it like that. But, the way this has went on, it really is what it is. And like I said earlier, the people that's burning these clothes, that to me is just idiotic. But, everybody wants to do something for the gram. Everybody wants to show social media that, I'm taking a stand. But if you really didn't want the clothes, you could have just donated them to a homeless shelter or donated them to a kid's pantry. There's a million places you could have donated that Nike gear that you didn't want. But, of course, everybody has to act crazy for social media now. The thing that really surprised me with this, because, Nike is one of the NFL's biggest sponsors. They sponsor all the uniforms, the jersey, the pants, the gloves, all of that. That all comes from Nike. So it's like, okay, and from that angle, it was really surprising because the stance that the NFL is taking on this whole deal. The NFL kept trying to push this thing off, hoping it would go away, because it was affecting their bottom line, or at least they thought it was affecting their bottom line. And now the NFL has no choice. They've got no choice but to tackle this issue with the players. They've got really no choice but to sit and listen with the players. And then on top of that, you know what I like even more? Nike and the NFL just signed a 10-year contract. Extended their contract for the uniforms and everything else until 2028. And the NFL ain't giving back no money. So now the NFL has no choice but to face this thing head on. The NFL released a statement saying, and I quote, "The National Football League believes in dialogue, understanding, and unity. We embrace the role and responsibility of everyone involved with this game to promote meaningful, positive change in our communities. The social justice issues that Colin and other professional athletes have raised deserve our attention and action," end quote. This statement came from the NFL Executive Vice President of Communications and Public Affairs, Jocelyn Moore. This statement really kind of shocked me because up until this point, the NFL has seemingly done very little, if anything, to get involved with this. And the one time that they did, when they passed that anthem rule, that turned out not to be a rule, of course, after they pulled it off the table after such bad reception. That was one of the craziest things that the NFL could have done because the NFL just doesn't get it. But that's another story for another day. Up until this point, though, it really kind of seemed like the NFL was hell-bent on not having anything to do with Kaepernick or this movement that he spearheaded. It seems like the NFL was really kind of just trying to stay out of it any way they could because they were so scared that it was going to affect their bottom line. And, really when it came to Kaepernick, the NFL really didn't even want to talk about him. Of course, they won't sign him, even though there's quarterbacks like Nathan Peterman of the Bills who couldn't get the offense but 2 yards in the entire first half yesterday against the Ravens, and the Bills got trounced to 47-3. But there are still folks who want to say Colin Kaepernick can't play football, but they'll support a guy like Nathan Peterman from a football standpoint. But I'm not going to pile on Nathan Peterman. But yeah, the NFL, they moved heaven and earth to steer clear of Colin Kaepernick after this whole deal, especially when the president made things worse with his tweets. Another thing that this statement really kind of tells me that this really kind of signals that the NFL feels like it's losing this fight, and they know it. So it's better to have this dialogue and this conversation and to take those steps to bring awareness to these issues so we as a society can move forward. Because at the end of the day, that's all these players were asking when they started taking part in these protests, because a protest is meant to make you uncomfortable. It is meant to raise awareness. It's just like the Me Too movement and all these other movements. It's, the Me Too movement is not going to eradicate rape and sexual assault as much as we would like for it to. It's not going to eradicate it, but what it is going to do, it brings awareness so that folks, it's on their antenna that, hey, this kind of stuff is going on in our country, in our society. This is the kind of stuff that women are having to deal with, on a daily basis, and some of the most unlikely places that it should happen. This is what women are having to deal with, and as a result, you're starting to see more and more women step up and say, hey, this, we're not going to tolerate this anymore. We're not going to be silent about it anymore. That's what the whole Me Too movement is about. It's about bringing awareness. And this protest is about bringing awareness to the things, the social injustices that are going on in this country. It's not to say it's going to eradicate it, but it is to tell folks this is what's going on. And you won't listen to these people when they take the more conventional routes. So Colin Kaepernick and people like him said, okay, you know what? You won't listen to them. When they try to go the conventional route, we'll use our platform and we'll speak for these people. So, the crazy thing about this, it took one of the NFL's biggest sponsors, if not the biggest sponsor, back in the most polarizing player of this time period to get their attention. Like this is huge. This is absolutely huge. And this was a huge publicity boom for Nike. Within the first 24 hours of this campaign launching on social media, Nike had already made $43 million in publicity, both good and bad, from this. In the first week, Nike sales shot up 31%. Nike made, I believe it was over $143 million just this past week, just off of this campaign alone. I mean, it is amazing what this campaign did for Nike in just such a short amount of time. Now, of course, now as I say that, there are some people out there who's going to say Nike's only doing this for money. Now, let's not be naive. Nike's a business. So, of course, money is the end game. I mean, no business is going to do something and not expect some kind of financial return on it. But to some degree, you also can't tell me that Nike didn't see the message that Cap was trying to send with all of the fallout that they knew that would come from this, because Nike did their marketing research. They knew they were going to alienate some customers. They knew that there was going to be some fallout to come from this entire deal. And they went ahead and they did it anyway. So that tells me that, Nike, they knew the risk that they were taking, but at the same time, they felt like it was worth it from a financial standpoint and from a principle standpoint. But, controversial marketing campaigns is nothing new for Nike. If you remember back, well, first of all, Colin Kaepernick's been with Nike since 2011, but I believe this is like the first marketing campaign that he's been the face of. Nike's been known to be bold and go get athletes who are edgy, who've got some controversy staring around them, and use them in big marketing campaigns. They stuck behind Tiger Woods when he went through his entire deal. They stuck with Kobe Bryant when he took when he went through his entire fiasco back in 2003. Now, I'm not saying Colin Kaepernick is on the same level as these guys and their scandals, because he's not. Colin Kaepernick is a great guy. He hasn't been caught up in scandal. He hadn't been arrested or anything else like that. He didn't do anything illegal by legal standards and also by the NFL Constitution and the CBA and the bylaws. He didn't do anything that was illegal by those standards. Catchy slogans and bold marketing strategies with edgy athletes who've got some controversy surrounding them. This is what Nike's been known for throughout their history. If you remember, Bo Knows with Bo Jackson, I Want to Be Like Mike with Michael Jordan, and the ever classical Just Do It. Like, this is in Nike's ballpark, so to speak. And I'm not even going to get into the football standpoint of Colin Kaepernick playing, because Colin Kaepernick can still play. You know what? I'll drop a few stats. In 2016, the last year he played in 12 games. He had 16 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. His numbers were comparable to Tyrod Taylor and Andy Dalton's numbers for that year. I don't have their numbers right in front of me, but but his numbers are about the same as they were. Of course, Tyrod Taylor and Andy Dalton, they're both starters in the NFL today. Tyrod Taylor with the Browns, Andy Dalton with the Bengals. Colin Kaepernick was one throw away from winning the Super Bowl against the Baltimore Ravens back in early 2013. So this is a dude who can still play. And I would love to see Colin Kaepernick in a Broncos uniform, even though I know that'll never happen. But sadly, it looks like Colin Kaepernick will never play in the NFL again. So, Like the slogan says on the picture, believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. Colin Kaepernick believed in this, and as a result, unfortunately, he sacrificed his football career. But, what he's doing is bigger than football. So, either way, it's a win-win for Colin Kaepernick. And I'm so proud of this dude. I am extremely proud of Colin Kaepernick for him sticking to his beliefs and what he's been able to achieve as a result. So this is huge. This is huge. Well, moving on in the low with Roe, week 1 in the NFL started yesterday on Sunday, and the Broncos and the Seahawks, they met in Denver. The Broncos, of course, won the game 27-24. It was a nail biter. The Broncos tried to give me a heart attack there for a little while, but I was excited for a few reasons in this game, because really the main things that I was looking for was Case Keenum's performance, Denver's offensive line play, the rush game in Denver, how would that be, and the defense. Overall, I'll give Denver a C+ in this game, because I really liked what Denver did in all 3 phases: offense, defense, and special teams. The offense they played very well overall. The first half, the offense looked good. Case Keenum had the offense rolling that first half. They moved the ball well up and down the field. They were moving the ball at will. Case Keenum was really taking care of the ball. Him and Emmanuel Sanders, they got a good connection going on there. That Case Keenum-Emmanuel Sanders connection is going to be dangerous for NFL defenses. He's going to get a connection with Demaryius Thomas, because Demaryius Thomas, he had a few key drops yesterday, which is that's one of those things that's frustrated fans with DT the last few years. But DT, he's always come through in the clutch, just like he did with that late touchdown in the third quarter. With the hiccups with the offense yesterday, I'm just going to attribute to a new quarterback and a new offense, and he's got new receivers. So like I said on the last podcast, these teams, they don't get to have the reps and things like that in training camp and preseason in the games like they need. So it's just going to take a little bit of time, but once this offense really gets rolling, they're going to be dangerous. Like I said, they moved the ball up and well down the field. Case Keenum had 329 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Case Keenum's no Peyton Manning, but the offense looked a lot smoother with a decent quarterback under center. Now, I wasn't impressed with his 3 interceptions, and really those interceptions came from Case Keenum just trying to do too much, trying to stick the ball in tight windows and just making they were just bad throws. But that's one of those things that, he'll get that ironed out, and some of that's miscommunication between the quarterback and the receiver. And as time goes and they get better chemistry and better timing, you'll see mistakes like that really kind of cut down. Now, he got a little sloppy in the third quarter. That's where he threw 2 of his 3 interceptions to go along with the 1 interception in the first half. Earl Thomas, he jumped the route and picked the ball off on that first interception from Keenum. So Keenum got a little sloppy in the third quarter, and once you start throwing interceptions and turning the ball over, those are momentum killers. So that's really what caused the offense to get stagnant in the third. They started, and that was going on. I was kind of like, man, this is kind of starting to look like the offense from last year, where it's constant 3 and outs, where they're making bad decisions and they just can't get anything going. And it was disappointing because in the first half of the game, the offense was rolling, and then it was like they hit that cold spot after halftime, but they started getting together. They started getting it together towards the end of the third quarter, and then they closed it out in the fourth. That rushing game came alive in the fourth quarter. But really, the thing that most impressed me yesterday was the fact that Denver was able to still squeak out a win against a really good Seahawks team after turning the ball over 3 times. And with a quarterback like Russell Wilson, he's athletic, he can move around, he can make stuff happen with his feet. For them to turn the ball over to him 3 times, and for them to be able to contain him and keep him from really busting out too many big plays and to still squeak out a 3-point win, hey, I'll take it every time. For game 1, I'll take it each and every year. But like I said, I was really, really impressed with how the offense sustained drives and converted on third downs. Emmanuel Sanders, like I said earlier, he looked really, really good. Emmanuel Sanders is going to be a problem for NFL defenses this year because that dude, he gave the Seahawks defense the blues. He had that big 43-yard touchdown pass. I believe that was in the second quarter. So Emmanuel Sanders, he looked really good. Phillip Lindsay, this dude right here, keep your eyes on him, number 30. He was the guy, he got permission from Terrell Davis to sport his number. Phillip Lindsay, he's a local Colorado kid. He's the first NFL player to go through the Broncos futures program because he's from Denver. Phillip Lindsay, he went to school in Colorado. I mean, he's Colorado kid through and through. 15 carries for Phillip Lindsay, 102 total yards, 1 touchdown. Royce Freeman, he looked really, really good as well. He came up big in the fourth quarter. He closed it out, grinded out those last minutes in the league. He grinded out those last minutes in the game where it's just like, man, where the offense, you just want to keep the ball and just run the clock out. And Royce Freeman and Phillip Lindsay, they executed that perfectly. 15 carries for Royce Freeman yesterday, 71 yards. The Broncos offense, like I said earlier, they got cold in the third quarter, and those interceptions were the main culprits. Now, Denver's O-line, this was another thing that I was really looking at coming into this game. The offensive line looks to be greatly improved from the last few years. And, man, I was so impressed with what the offensive line gave up last night. I believe they only gave up 1 sack, but the rushing game looked good. I mean, they opened up lanes. They opened up alleys. They were knocking the defenders off of their assignments, off of their spots. I mean, it was a really good effort. Outside of the 3 interceptions, Denver's offense looked great yesterday. Without you cut those interceptions out of that equation yesterday, and Denver could have easily blown out the Seahawks yesterday. Now the question is, can the offensive line and the offense as a whole stay consistent with their performance? Because last year, the first 4 weeks of the season, Denver looked great, and then of course the bottom fell out. So that's going to be one thing that I'll be looking forward to seeing as we move forward in this season is, can they stay consistent? As far as time of possession goes, Denver had the ball 35 minutes and 8 seconds. You will win a lot of games in the National Football League with that much ball control. They were 4 for 12 on third down conversions, which in a lot of ways, I know that sounds bad when you first look at it. But the reason why they're 4 for 12 on third down, because, I mean, there were sometimes they weren't even getting in third down. I mean, they were really moving the ball. The defense was able to stay fresh, going back to the time of possession aspect. Now, speaking of the defense, Von Miller is a machine. I mean, it's just no other way to put it. I mean, Von Miller he's Hall of Fame talent, and he's going to be in the MVP voting this year. I'm calling it right now. Von Miller is a monster. 3 sacks on the day, 2 forced fumbles, 7 tackles total. I think it was 4 tackles for loss. I mean, Von Miller was everywhere. He harassed Seattle's offense last night. He stripped the ball from Seattle running back Chris Carson in that was a highlight play. Like, to me, that might possibly be the highlight of the night. Now, unfortunately, Case Keenum gave the ball right back on the very next play. But I mean, but Von Miller's been known to strip the ball from the ball carrier throughout the years. I mean, going back to Super Bowl 50, when he stripped the ball twice from Cam Newton. He stripped the ball from Derek Carr over in Oakland that same year on a sack fumble. I mean, so this is something that he's been known to do throughout his career. With those 3 sacks against the Seahawks, he broke into the top 50 sack list in NFL history. Von Miller's got 86.5 sacks for his entire career. Even Chris Harris Jr. got in on the sack party on a quarterback blitz yesterday. The Broncos sacked Russell Wilson 6 times yesterday. And while I'm on the topic of DBs, keep your eyes on Justin Simmons, number 31 of the Denver Broncos. That dude is going to be a top 5 safety. If not this year, he's going to be a top 5 safety in the next 1 or 2 years. Justin Simmons is a beast. He came up with a late third quarter clutch interception that really kind of helped Denver start sealing the deal to take this dub home yesterday. But like I said, take it to the bank. Number 31, Justin Simmons on the Denver Broncos. That dude's going to be a top 5 safety within the next few years. Now, the thing that the defense has got to tighten up on, they gave up too many big plays at times. There was a big carry by Chris Carson the running back, where he ran for 70-plus yards. And it wasn't that the Broncos defenders weren't hitting him. They got hands on him. They just didn't wrap up. I mean, it was terrible tackling. And there were times where I thought Chris Carson and the Seattle rushing game was going to break off some big plays, because it was they're kind of early in the game. It was like, man, they're kind of starting to gash them up the middle. But the Broncos defense settled in and started taking away those running lanes. So there was a lot of good things that happened yesterday in offense and defense for the Broncos. The special teams looked greatly improved from what happened with them the last few years, because last year special teams was special teams was rough last year, but they look a lot better coming into 2018. Thank you, football Jesus. So, like I said, overall, I really liked what I saw from Denver. I'll give them a solid C+ for game one. A lot of things they got to iron out, but it's a lot of great things for the Broncos to build on as we move forward into the season. So I'm excited about the Broncos, and mark my words, the Denver Broncos, I'm not going to go as far as to say they're going to be Super Bowl champions, because I don't like to. I'm one of those people, I feel like if I say that, I might jinx them. But the Denver Broncos are going to be a lot better in 2018 than most people think. Members of the Steelers' offensive line are not happy with Le'Veon Bell as he continues to be a no-show in Pittsburgh. His agent advised that L. Bell is willing to miss games like he did against the Browns to protect himself from injury and his long-term future. This is a big, big development, because you generally don't see guys on the same team go after a dude publicly like this, especially not when it's about his money, because these dudes, they know the business. So this should come as no surprise as to why Le'Veon Bell is doing what he's doing. And I could not believe these dudes fixed their mouths to say the things that came out of them, because you don't pay attention to another man's wallet. Like, that's just unwritten code, whether you're talking about football or just everyday life. You don't worry about what another grown man is doing with his pocketbook, with his money. I mean, that's oh my God, that is, I don't even have the words for it, man. I mean, as a grown man, I couldn't care less what another man does with his money and how he gets it. You know, as long as I'm not doing anything illegal, and as long as what he's doing is not affecting my pockets, I'm not worried about how another man gets his money, because that's how he's going to make his living. That's how he's going to feed his family. So, hey, you know, get it how you get it. But L. Bell is trying to prove his point to the Steelers, and he's willing to miss games like he did against the Browns. He's willing to miss games to prove his point. And I don't blame L. Bell one bit. Because on one hand, look, I get it. His teammates, they want him in the building. They want him on the field. I completely understand. Bruh, you're one of the best players, if not our best player on offense. We need you here so we can rack up these dubs and we can try to get to another Super Bowl. I completely understand where they're coming from in that aspect. But you rarely, if ever, see guys call out their own teammate in public like this. Now, in private, he's free game. You know, you say, if you're going to say this kind of stuff, this is the kind of stuff that you keep in the locker room. This is the kind of stuff that you say to a man to his face. Or you, at the very least, call him up on the phone. I mean, at the very, very least, send him a text message. But you do not go to the media like these dudes did and air out this man like they did. I mean, this has got to be something that's deeper than football for them to go and do something like this. Because what's said in the confines of that locker room or between us as men is exactly that. And I honestly don't blame L. Bell one bit for not telling these dudes a whole lot, because Marquise Pouncey is going back. You know, the minute L. Bell tells him anything, he's going back telling the media. He's going back telling the team management, the front office, like, dude, you talking out of both sides of your mouth. You can't trust people like that. You know, and then the general manager, he comes out with this statement talking about he's disappointed that they couldn't get a deal done. Like, bro, that's then you should be disappointed with yourself, because that's your job. You know, if they would have just paid Le'Veon Bell, this is the second year that the Steelers have went around this merry-go-round with Le'Veon Bell and whether or not they want to pay him. You know, they offered him a contract of 3 years, $60 million, I believe it was, earlier in the offseason. But the way the Steelers operate, they don't guarantee a dime past the first year. So L. Bell, he looked at that and he saw it and he said, nah, bruh. Y'all gonna guarantee me my money with the way that the Steelers use Le'Veon Bell in that offense. I would go the exact same route he's going because, he had 321 carries yesterday. He had 321 carries for the Steelers last year in 2017, 85 catches. So that's 406 times you touched the ball. That's 406 times that you put yourself in line to be injured. So, and to be a running back, man, running back position, you got to be a man at that position because, you getting hit from all angles. You getting hit by your dudes. You getting hit by the defenders. You got to be a man to run up the middle of an NFL offensive and defensive line and take the kind of hits and the kind of punishment that these running backs take. And that's why the running back position, that's why these guys only last such a short time in the league, because of the hits, because of the nature of the position. Most NFL running backs only last between 3 and 5 years. So, L. Bell's trying to get his money now, and I don't blame him at all. And the thing about it, I don't understand why these dudes are worried about how Le'Veon Bell's going about getting his money, because nobody complained when Ben Roethlisberger got his money. He wasn't up in front of the media saying he would take a pay cut and everything else. Nobody complained when Antonio Brown got his money. But Le'Veon Bell, he outperforms his contract, and he wants to be paid accordingly and wants long-term security and is willing to sit out until he gets the insurance that he's going to get it. And now it's a problem. This really kind of makes you wonder if L. Bell told teammates he would be at the facility at some point and just went back on it. It's got to be something bigger than football as to why these guys are acting like this. But even if it was bigger than football, keep it out of the media. I don't understand that. Marquise Pouncey and Ramon Foster, airing out grievances like this in the public to the media. I'm not with that. Guys like that, you can't trust them. Because really when it comes to L. Bell, man, for them dudes to do this, it might be time for him to get out of Pittsburgh. It's time for him to go. This is your line, man. This is his hogs. The ones that open up lanes and alleys and everything for him to run through, to have those big runs. And Ramon Foster said, we're the ones that do it for him and this and that and the other. Stop it, bruh. Because at the end of the day, you're doing it for your family. If the Pittsburgh Steelers weren't paying you what they're paying you, you wouldn't be opening up those lanes and alleys for Le'Veon Bell. So let's just stop it. You don't do it for him. You do it for your family at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, every man is out there for his paycheck so he can earn money for himself and his family. And I get it. A running back is only as good as his line in some ways, so I completely understand. But, Le'Veon Bell, he played on the franchise tag last season. Players hate the tag because there's no long-term security there. So what he's saying is, okay, I played on the tag last season. I had all those touches. I'm not doing that again without long-term security, and I don't blame him. And the thing is, these teams want it both ways. They want you to honor your contract when you outperform it, but then when you underperform it, they're ready to trade you or cut you, and then they'll just chalk it up to just business. Well, now the player is doing just business for his business. I don't blame L. Bell again for doing what he's doing. And then on top of that, the running back position is a funny position in the fact that really it's the only position in the NFL where you can draft a dude and he be expected to come in and contribute in a big way just right away. Zeke did it in 2016. Kareem Hunt did it in 2017. Running back is the one position where you can draft these guys and then you can just throw them in the rotation and just, run them. And, these teams, especially the Steelers, they like to run these running backs into the ground, and they're trying to run Le'Veon into the ground, like the Cowboys. Look at what the Cowboys did with DeMarco Murray in 2014. They ran him and ran him and ran him. He had the decent year in Philly. Then he went over there to Tennessee, and, a short time later, he's out. So, these running backs, they got to try to get their money, at the first part of their contracts when they're in their prime, because it's a funny position. There's no other position like it in the NFL. But what the Steelers are doing is what a lot of teams have done recently with the running back position. They put less value on it. And basically they're saying we can get by without paying this dude all this money. Le'Veon Bell is saying, okay, that's perfectly fine if you don't pay me because somebody else will. So he can sit out all the way till week 11. He can sign his tag, finish out the year, and then he'll be a free agent after the year is over. James Conner had 31 carries yesterday, 135 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So not too shabby of a day. So, maybe Pittsburgh can get by without Le'Veon Bell. And that's good production from James Conner. But James Conner, he ain't no Le'Veon Bell. So it's going to be interesting to see how this situation plays out as the year progresses. All right, it's time for I'm in and I'm out. Let's see what I'm in and out on today. Doug Pederson went off on the local Philadelphia media last week about his quarterback situation in Philly. Take a listen.
Morning. Hey, Doug, have you made a decision on who will be your starting quarterback, and if so, who is it?
First of all, I appreciate y'all putting words in my mouth this week, and therefore, I'm not going to discuss it.
How were words put in your mouth?
You saw the reports.
What report?
Next question. Who
here put the words in?
Next question.
I know, but what reporter here put the words in your mouth?
I'm not answering the question.
I know, but you said you. Well, that makes no sense. You're not going to lump us all together. Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right.
I'm going to lump you all together.
Okay, well, that's good. We're asking a fair question.
What's the point of this? I mean,
Exactly. What is the point of this? It's my decision.
and you're not going to discuss your decision.
No.
So why are you having a news
Not
conference?
publicly. Not publicly. I don't do that. I don't do it with any position on this team. I will not do it.
Was Carson cleared for contact?
He is not.
He has not been
Yeah.
cleared for contact. Okay.
Not yet.
So, Doug, if he hasn't been cleared, is it your decision to even make?
My decision to make?
I mean, if he hasn't been cleared for contact, would it even be
We
your
got
decision?
a lot of days left. I'm trying to win a football game, And I don't want to put my game plan out there for everybody to see it and read it, and teams can scheme, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense, So I appreciate it.
I'm all the way out on Doug Pederson's response here because he's upset with the wrong people. Because first of all, it was a national reporter, Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, who leaked this info in a tweet. And second of all, it's no secret that Carson Wentz is not cleared to play. He didn't play Thursday against the Falcons. So, it had been speculated on that he wasn't going to be able to play for a few weeks. And on top of that, Doug Pederson himself said a few weeks back that Carson Wentz hadn't been cleared for contact. And that's one thing that coaches, I get it. Coaches are extremely superstitious. They're extremely secretive. And I get it for all the right reasons. But, if you tell me that Carson Wentz can't be cleared for contact or he's not cleared for contact, well, that means he can't play. Come on, Doug. And then on top of that, why are you mad at the media in this situation? Especially the local media. They didn't do nothing. Of course, they're going to ask about the quarterback situation when you haven't given a definitive answer. That's what the media does. And it's not a bad thing for the media to just do their job and ask, what about the quarterback situation, when you really kind of tried to leave them in the dark on purpose. Come on, man. I like Doug Pederson. So, I'm not jumping on him here. I like Doug Pederson. He's a smart coach, great coach, obviously, after what they did in the Super Bowl. But, if you're going to be mad at anybody, you should be mad at the anonymous source inside your organization who leaked this info, because all the media is going to do is report on it. But you need to be mad at the source, because the way these reporters get these anonymous sources, they're folks on the team, of course. They're GMs, they're coaches, they're players, equipment people, trainers, somebody who's in close proximity, who's close to the team, who gives out info to these reporters, and in exchange for that, they stay anonymous. And good luck getting any good reporter to give up a source. Reporters do not give up sources. So he's mad at the wrong person. You need to be mad at who leaked the info to the reporter, because all the reporter's going to do is say, hey, my sources say that Carson Wentz is not going to play for a few weeks. Okay. Well, that's no secret. Everybody already kind of knew Carson Wentz was going to be out for an extended period of time. And don't get me wrong, I get the frustration and the suspicion, but he could have just said, guys, look, I'm not getting into all of that today. You'll see my starter when we walk out of the tunnel each week. And we're just going to leave it at that. Now this is something I would kind of expect from Nick Saban, from somebody like Nick Saban, because, of course, he went off on the media after the game against Alabama and Louisville. He went off on Maria Taylor for some unknown reason. But to Nick Saban's credit, he called her up and apologized. But, I don't understand it why coaches get mad at the media. Now, there are some instances where I do understand why the coaches get mad at the media. Don't get me wrong, because the media is not perfect in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I work in the media. So, trust me, I can say we do have our flaws. But in this instance, Doug Pederson's wrong. Dude, the heat is turning up on Jim Harbaugh up in Michigan. Man, it seems like everywhere you turn, somebody is talking about how he's either underperformed or he'll be out of a job there soon, or the fact that he's just flat out not getting it done and questioning, can he do so on the collegiate level? I'm in on this. And let me preface this by saying I like Jim Harbaugh. I think he's a smart coach. I think he's a really good coach. But Braylon Edwards, who was a star at Michigan before he put together a pretty solid NFL career and turned that into a nice broadcasting gig with the Big Ten network, he got suspended after he went on a Twitter tirade last week during the Michigan-Notre Dame game. In this tirade, he called Michigan quarterback and the whole offense trash, said the line was weak, said the play calling was predictable. I mean, the dude just went off. And then he came out later and said he was inebriated when he sent the tweet. But he didn't apologize for the context of his tweet. I mean, he stood by what he said about the offense being predictable and the offense just not playing very well. But he said he should have worded it differently. And it ticked off the Michigan coaches and Jim Harbaugh, of course. But as much as it made them mad, I mean, Braylon Edwards didn't lie. Because since Jim Harbaugh's been in Michigan, they haven't been in the national championship conversation. Nobody's talked about Michigan being in the national championship since Jim Harbaugh's been there. He hasn't beaten Urban Meyer and Ohio State since he's been there either. He's 0-17 on the road against ranked opponents. He's 1-6 against Michigan's Big Three rivals, Ohio State, Michigan State, and Wisconsin. He finished 8-5 last year. So, I mean, when you have stats like that, I mean, the question's going to come as to whether or not you can get it done. Notre Dame, they dominated Michigan in week 1 in the 24-17 victory out in South Bend. And honestly, that game really shouldn't have even been as close as it was. I mean, Michigan was able to put together some nice things later on in the game to bring it a little bit closer. But Notre Dame dominated Michigan for the better part of that game. Now, Michigan's defense is nice. Michigan's defense is real nice. Those dudes can flat out play. But their offense needs major work. Their play calling on offense needs major work. And you're starting to hear a lot more whispers of Jim Harbaugh possibly returning to the NFL. But, you know, after what he did in the NFL a few years ago, that might be the best thing for him and the Michigan program. Because within 2 years of him arriving in San Francisco, he led them to a Super Bowl. And like I said earlier, they were one throw away from winning the Super Bowl against the Ravens that year. 3 NFC Championship games appearances under his belt. So if this is it for Jim Harbaugh at Michigan this year, the NFL will gladly take him back with open arms. That's it for I'm In, I'm Out. Moving on, let's see what we got in today's report of This Is Some Bull Jive. The whole Serena Williams craziness in the U.S. Open over the weekend. In that tennis match between her and Naomi Osaka, it's been well documented why Serena was going off on the chair umpire. You know, he accused her of cheating after they saw her coach make some kind of gesture. They thought he was coaching her, which is against the rules in tennis. And Serena went off on this dude and told him, you know, she told him he was a thief and he stole a game from her. And, you know, she called him a liar and, you know, she went off on him. And, you know, the thing is, you know, she accused the umpire and really in some ways the sport of being sexist. And, you know, she made the remark that she has problems every time she plays at that particular arena. And, you know, some people got upset with her saying that she felt it was sexist. But, you know, to me, I don't have an issue with Serena saying that it's sexist because we've seen men in the sport of tennis and other sports. We've seen men, cuss out officials, throw temper tantrums, throw stuff and everything else, turn tables and stuff over, and nobody says a word. Nobody says anything. They chalk it up to competition, or they chalk it up to the heat of competition when it comes to men. Perfect example, Tom Brady in the NFL. Whenever Tom Brady is caught on the sidelines cussing out his coaches or teammates or whatever, he's cussed out, Bill O'Brien when he was up there as the offensive coordinator. Him and Josh McDaniels have had several shouting matches. Whenever he does something like that and is throwing one of his tantrums, or he's yelling at the referees about a foul or a call that he felt like he should have gotten, a lot of times you'll hear the announcers or the commentators say, oh, it's just him being competitive. But then, when Serena, in this instance, is letting her emotions out and telling these people why she feels like she was done wrong, people want to say that, oh, she's, a lot of people made it seem like, oh, it's just another angry black woman. And that right there was some bull jive. But, this is what women of color, this is what, minority women deal with on a daily basis is, they can't really express themselves either way, because on one end of the spectrum, they're coming off as angry and, just complaining and this and that and the other. And then on the other end of the spectrum, if they're not showing enough emotion, it's just like she doesn't care. So, I don't have any issues, and I don't know a whole lot about tennis and the ins and outs and the intricacies of the sports and the rules, but I don't have an issue with Serena Williams saying that, she felt like this was sexist, because Serena Williams is one of the classiest athletes out there. I mean, in any sport, she's one of the greatest ambassadors of any sport. She always carries herself in high regard. She sets great examples for, young girls all around the world. She's always been, a role model, and she's always carried herself as such. This is not somebody who just says one thing and then you catch her doing another. No, Serena, she walks the walk just as much as she talks the talk. So, if she, by her track record, with the way she carries herself and the way she's handled racial controversies and things like that in the past, if Serena Williams says something is sexist, or she feels like something is sexist, then I'm more inclined to go with what she says. And the way, really tennis as a sport should really be a lot more grateful to Serena Williams, because I can honestly say, Serena Williams brought tennis a lot more fanfare than what they would probably have, because really, I know a lot of people, myself included, who don't even watch tennis unless Venus or Serena are playing, because they've been such dominating forces in the sport. So you would think tennis would be a little more grateful to one of the best ambassadors that they've ever had, and really the best tennis player that they've ever had, period. But I just thought the way the Tennis Federation handled, and then they fined her $17,000 for the outburst. So I just thought the way the Tennis Federation handled it was bull jive, basically. I think it could have been handled a lot better. But like I said, I don't have any issue with Serena Williams saying what she said. I mean, she felt a certain way, and, this is a woman who hasn't, she's never been accused of cheating. She's never been accused of trying to wrong the game in any way or get the edge by doing something wrong. So, it's just one of those things, and, I was really proud of the way Serena handled it. She told people to stop booing the other young lady, Naomi Osaka, and just celebrate her. She showed great sportsmanship after the match. So, she handled it with class like Serena always does. I'm a huge Serena Williams fan, so, she'll be back. This is just a bump in the road for Serena. She'll overcome this. But this instance right here, this was some bull jive. And then over here and kicking it, the last segment of the day, two of the best basketball players in the entire world, they teamed up to do a rap track. Yes, you heard me, a rap track. But this is not the first time that LeBron James and Kevin Durant have teamed up. Nah, that would be the 2012 Olympics when they went on to win a gold medal for the good old US of A. LeBron and KD recorded a track named It Ain't Easy during the 2011 NBA lockout. So back in the day, this song's been out for a minute, and the song was actually released on SoundCloud this past Friday. And I took a listen at this song, and I'll be honest with you. It's a really, really good song. Now, if you remember back then, LeBron was getting ready for his second season in Miami back in 2011. LeBron was getting ready for his second season in Miami, and KD, he was just 4 seasons into his storied NBA career. Now, when I first saw this headline, I was like, bruh, this song is probably going to be trash because it almost never works out when athletes try to rap. Remember when Shaq tried to rap? He tried to start up a rap career. He actually had a catchy song or two back in the day when he was doing it. And then even Kobe Bryant, a lot of people may not remember, but even Kobe Bryant tried to rap there for a minute. And as great as a basketball player as Kobe Bryant was, he was equally bad as a rapper. Neither Shaq or Kobe was very good at the rap game. So, and we've seen other athletes who have tried to be rappers and they crashed and burned. But this song is actually a really good song. And what was more surprising is, LeBron James is the best basketball player in the world, bar none. But out of these two fellas on this track, Kevin Durant is the better rapper. Kevin Durant is actually a really good rapper. He actually brought some heat on this track. And I advise you to go listen to the track on SoundCloud. It's called It Ain't Easy. Kevin Durant had some stuff to let off of his chest. LeBron James did as well. Now, LeBron, he did good. LeBron, his verse was clean, but Kevin Durant brought the heat on this track. So I put the link up on the Undrafted Podcast and Twitter pages. So click on the link in there and go check it out. The track is called It Ain't Easy, and it's on SoundCloud. Staying with the whole rap theme on the Kickin' It segment today, Eminem released a whole diss track about Machine Gun Kelly on his latest project, Kamikaze, on the song Not Alike. And that song is fire. It's absolute fire. Now, MGK released a response titled Rap Devil and a play off words of Eminem's Rap God title. And some people will disagree, but Machine Gun Kelly's track, his response was trash. Like, trash. Some people feel like Eminem's going to respond and come back and ultimately end MGK's career. But personally, I don't think Eminem's going to bother to respond, to be honest with you. And I don't think it's because he can't, because Eminem would kill this dude on the mic. But I think Eminem's at a point in his career where he's just like, he's going to say and do what he wants. And he's not going to really care, what the rest of the world has to say about it. Because if you see a lot of his latest pics, he's constantly flipping off the cameras. So this is clearly a man who's trying to convey the message to the world that I am who I am, I think what I'm going to think, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and I really don't care what anybody else has to say about it. And that's that. Well, that's my time for this episode of the Undrafted Podcast. I want to take this time and thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for blessing me with the gifts, the talents, and the resources to do this podcast. Thank you for taking time to tune in. Don't forget, you can follow the Undrafted Podcast on Instagram at the Undrafted Podcast or on Twitter at the Undrafted Pod. And I want to leave you today with one of my favorite Bible verses. And I'm going to keep it simple. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. And remember, do your best and let God handle the rest. Be blessed.